Hello everyone. Welcome. It is Tuesday, July the 21st, 2020, and I'm still in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where it is 81 degrees right now. It's supposed to be a high of 84, mostly sunny. Humidity is not bad at all. There's a light breeze, and as of a couple minutes ago, there was a very noisy squirrel that stopped acting like a monkey, which was good because we do not want squirrels to be monkeys because that would be weird. And I have not heard the screeching eagle, so we will see if the eagle comes out to play again today. The last two times I've done these Facebook Lives, we've heard an eagle screeching, and I have not heard the eagle. Didn't hear him on Saturday, didn't hear the eagle on Sunday, but heard him yesterday as well as you guys did. So we will see. So hello to Tina Marie Kirkpatrick from College Station, Texas, where I'm pretty sure, let me guess, it's hot and humid down there. I don't know, we didn't talk about the weather this morning, so I'm sure it's hot and humid though. So anyway, hello, Patty Velas from Houston, Texas. I'm sure it's hot and humid where Patty is at. So welcome everyone. And it is summer after all, so we should see some hot temperatures and some humidity. So yesterday, I was listening to 90.1 FM here in Fort Wayne. It plays 24 hours a day in the home that I'm staying in, and they normally keep it on a low level. So yesterday, again, I heard them play the Matthew West song, Truth Be Told. This is the second time. Again, I've not heard it ever. It came out in October. I started hearing it for the first time in January. I play it every time I do a breakthrough conference because it's talking about being honest, and we need to tell the truth and not keep the truth hidden, because when we do that, the enemy gets to torment us, and then we don't get to have peace. We don't get to have joy when the enemy is in charge. So, but that song's really good. Speaks the truth, and I had never heard it played. They played it again yesterday here in Fort Wayne. Second time. They said it was a new song, new release or something by Matthew West, but it's been out there since at least October of last year or so. But they're finally playing it now. So yay! Awesome. And excited to see the breakthrough attendance is growing. August 1st, Minneapolis at the Marriott West. We had, I don't know, something like 33, I think, on Facebook, and then another 21 on Eventbrite, which at least half of the ones on Eventbrite were already signed up on Facebook. So again, we are looking for at least 50 people, potentially 60, and we'll take more if the other part of the ballroom is not available, because it's the largest ballroom that they have, and right now they said that they can fit probably 60 in to half of that. So yay, come on out, those that are within a, I don't know, 12-hour drive of Minneapolis. Again, we had people last time we had it, July the 11th, we had people from 7 different states, including Texas. South of San Antonio, a lady had come up and was visiting a friend in Nebraska, and they ended up driving up, so that was cool. And then also a guy from Orlando, Florida. He was doing some work in Chicago and decided to drive 6 hours up from Chicago. And we had people coming from all the states around there, like Nebraska and Iowa and South Dakota and Wisconsin. So anyway, Minneapolis is a place to be for ministry. So breakthrough August 1st, and then August 8th, I'll be at the Marriott West in Des Moines, Iowa. August 15th at the Marriott on the west side of Omaha, Nebraska. So it is getting filled up. I think we're up to 24 now in Omaha and Des Moines, West Des Moines. We still have some good numbers there, and good availability as well for people to come. So again, if you're in those vicinities and you want to attend a breakthrough event, it's life-changing. We've had a lot of people who have given me back feedback from that, saying, oh my gosh, the worship was amazing, the ministry and the freedom we felt at the end was awesome, and people are hungry to get together and to worship together and to get freed from wounds from their past. So excited about that. Very, 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 very much so. I'm going to read this. There's a network of California churches that filed a lawsuit against Governor Gavin Newsom on Friday, defying the state's coronavirus lockdown orders against holding indoor church services, while state officials were encouraging protests. We all know about the riots and the protests that the California people were just saying, yes, keep on doing this. This is great. Don't have to wear a mask for that. So this pastor, and actually I've been to this church a couple of years ago, Harvest Rock Church. It's in Pasadena, California. Lead pastor Shay On, A-H-N, and his first name C-H-E, addressed the Democrat governor in his message Sunday at the Pasadena location. He says, I want us to pray right now that we will win that court case. No one is above the Constitution. No one is above the law. On told his congregation, as a pastor, I believe we've been essential for 2,000 years. You know what? 2,000 years ago, I believe Jesus was here, or close to that. Yeah, something like that. So 2,000 years, I believe that the church has been essential. So Liberty Council is representing Harvest International Ministry, which also has churches in Corona. Isn't that funny? Corona, California. Remember when I was out there in Southern California? I drove through Corona. It's just south of LA. I think it's southeast of LA. They also have churches in Irvine and is connected to thousands of ministries around the world. He says, I just feel the hypocrisy of encouraging protests. We're all for that, but let's just be consistent, On said. Yeah, let's allow churches to at least meet if you're going to allow riots to happen, protests and so forth. So Newsom encourages tens of thousands of people to gather for mass protests. He bans all in-person worship and home Bible studies and fellowship. Such repression is well known in despotic governments, and it is shocking that even home fellowship is banned in America. Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Council, said in a statement on the lawsuit, this outrage will not stand. So they're standing up for truth. They're standing up for Jesus, which is good. On's congregations are the latest to join the battle between Newsom and houses of worship over coronavirus restrictions. 3 Northern California churches, Calvary Chapel of Ukiah, Calvary Chapel of Fort Bragg, and River of Life Church in Oroville, filed a lawsuit Wednesday, represented by the American Center for Law and Justice, seeking to block Newsom's July 1st ban on singing. Did you know about that? Their governor actually banned people in churches from singing. How ridiculous is that? It's hard enough to sing when they're putting masks on. Can you imagine banning it, saying you can't sing in houses of worships to stop the spread of coronavirus? After facing another spike in COVID-19 cases, which we know that, in fact, one of the pastors at the church in, what was it? It came out on Sunday. I can remember it now. Rockland, I believe is the name of the church, Rockland. He had talked about how the governor was adding 1 + 1 = 10 instead of 1 + 1 = 2. And I believe that is true. They're trying to inflate these numbers drastically. And that makes people to have more fear that, okay, there's a second wave now coming back, which is interesting because it's like no other country is seeing any second waves. Only here in America. Gee, I wonder why. So, Newsom announced last week that all bars across the state must close and that restaurants, wineries, tasting rooms, family entertainment centers, zoos, museums, and card rooms must suspend indoor activities. Some houses of worship had to shut down again too. The governor announced that all gyms, you know, gyms where you work out at, like Planet Fitness, LA Fitness, 24-Hour Fitness, Equinox is the place I worked out at once out there. Says the governor announced that all gyms, places of worship, that would be churches, malls, personal care services, barbershops. Barbershops, that means you can't get your hair cut again? Oh my gosh, we can't go back to that again. That would be horrible. Salons and non-critical offices in counties on the state's monitoring list had to shut down under the new order. So those poor people in California can't get their haircuts anymore. Now, although I think I saw one where they were trying to, he was saying that they could do it, but they had to do it outside. And I'm like, how many people get their haircuts outside? So it's ridiculous. The order affects more than 30 counties, which are home to about 80% of California's population. So I'm pretty sure that Governor Newsom's planning to not get reelected, because you don't do all this craziness, absurdity, and then expect to get re-voted back in. So, all right, so here we go. Let's talk about the topic of the day. It's interesting because this topic plays along with what I just read, and there are, you know, when we first had this virus thing come out, you know, there was warranting for caution because we weren't sure exactly what it was, how many people are going to get it, so I can understand that. But now that we've seen, okay, you know, there's a small percentage of people that get it, very small, and those that do get it have like a 99% recovery rate. So, someone had sent me today that the H1N1 virus, remember that in 2009? That had something like 65 million more people that had that than would have had this coronavirus. And did we shut down like we did then, or now? Did we shut that down, the world, last time when H1N1 came out? No, we didn't. Were they forced to wear masks last time? No, they weren't. So what's changed? Well, gee, maybe because President Trump is the president and he's actually taking action like no other president's done on those who are doing evil, those who are, you know, into sex trafficking, those that are into pedophilia. He's actually bringing people to justice. He's actually arresting people. He's actually shutting down drug cartels, shutting down, putting up a wall so they can't just bring in all the drug cartels from Mexico, because they could have carte blanche to walk in. Now they can't. Now they're having more challenges. So kudos to President Trump for taking a stand in the facet of the entire world, essentially trying to come against him, as the liberals and the Democrats are trying to paint him as an evil person when they are the ones, in fact, that are doing evil. So anyway, that's, the Lord told me to write this yesterday, and it's called, "It's Better to Do Right in the Lord's Eyes and Face Persecution by Men." You know, that's what happens. When we stand up for Christ, we're going to get persecuted. You know, I've gotten persecuted. I know what that feels like, and it's not cool. Nobody likes it. But what's interesting is when the enemy comes against us and persecutes and lies and does whatever, negative, evil things, they normally yell, they raise their voice, they threaten, "I'm going to really let you have it. I'm going to expose, all these threats. And that's what the enemy, that's what Satan does, that's what the demons do, is to threaten God's people. And that's why it's not easy sometimes, because out of fear, you're used to cowering down, and the enemy is used to threatening and getting its way and getting people to cower to the enemy. And again, there's lots of people that are churchgoers who have demonic spirits, who are saying things to threaten people who are evil. And the people that are threatening are the ones that are evil, and they're used to getting their way. They're used to saying, "Okay, pastor, if you don't stop talking about the spirit of Jezebel, then I'm going to lie about you and get people to believe those lies, and then you'll have no more church. You'll lose half your church because I'm really, really good at lying." And that's what they'll do. You know, the enemy and the demons within these people are very, very adept liars. And it is true. You know, you see it in marriages all the time. People that struggle more with the spirit of Jezebel are very classic narcissistic liars that will lie through their teeth about their good spouses or their spouses that they're hurting and manipulating to get people to believe the lies and turn against them. And so they count on people not being able to verify that they're lying. And that's what's going on right now, is there's a lot of people that are the yellers and the screamers, that are the liars, that are getting their way because of they're used to doing that. And they know that if they keep getting mad at people and yelling and screaming and rioting, that normally most people give in to them. But now people are no longer doing that. They're starting to stand up. Why? Because we finally have a president that's not being persuaded, say, by the Freemasons and so forth, to do wrong and evil. And that's why Republicans don't know what to do with him. You know, those that were doing evil, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's, we can't buy him out for whatever reason." Well, maybe because God's put him there, maybe because he's got a lot of money that he doesn't will not be persuaded by money, and he will not be taken down that way. That's why he's like a Cyrus, a King Cyrus, that Lance Wallnau and others talk about, that he is. He's very much like that. And in fact, the scripture I'm going to be reading today, talking about Daniel, refers to Cyrus, that Daniel got to flourish and be blessed once he had to go through the whole lions, being thrown in the lion's den thing, and then surviving that. But he was blessed under King Darius as well as King Cyrus. So anyway, let's go ahead and I will dig in and start reading. All right, here we go. It's not easy obeying God when he wants you to do something opposite of man or the rest of the world. But isn't that how it's always been in the Bible? Paul did say that Christians would be persecuted for standing up for the Lord. It's especially not easy when you could be mocked or lose your job, church, retirement income, possibly even your life, for taking a stand for Christ. You know, a lot of people right now are saying, oh my gosh, what do I do? They're going to make me wear a mask at my job. You know, there's some people that have been exposing that it's not healthy for our lungs to breathe in a lot of carbon dioxide. And that's what happens with a mask when you wear it. And so oftentimes people get lightheaded, they get dizzy, they get sick, and they can't work because of those conditions. And then they've proven that those don't even stop the coronavirus. So it's like, well, then what's the point? Why are we even wearing that? Well, then ask yourself that. Do you think Jesus would be wearing them? Do you think the disciples would? I don't think so. All right, go back. Here we go. So remember all the wrath that Noah took from everyone for years. Remember, for years and years and years, Noah and his family were building this huge ark because God told them to. And up to that point, it had never even rained on earth. So you can imagine the ridicule and the mocking that Noah got, you know, and just think, you know, some of the stuff that we've gone through. If you've walked into stores and stuff and weren't wearing masks, you know, I've did that when I was up in Minneapolis. I went to a Target, went to a, where else was it? Went to a grocery store, went to a Trader Joe's, and I was like the only one that didn't have a mask on. And I could tell that some of the people there were like, gee, I wish I could not wear a mask because I could breathe probably a lot better. But I'm being told that I'm supposed to, so I'm just going to go along with it. You know, so it's hard to stand up to things. You know, again, it doesn't sound like it's a horrible thing to wear a mask. Like, oh, they sell it well, saying, well, you're going to protect people from getting this virus. And so you wear it out of, okay, I'm going to honor that. And it doesn't seem evil, but it's conditioning mankind, conditioning us to the next thing they want is to say, okay, now you're going to all take vaccines. Now you're going to all take the mark of the beast. And then people eventually say, okay, we'll do that. We don't want to come against the government. Well, if the government's corrupt and evil, then we're going to have to take a stand at some point. Otherwise, you'll end up falling off the cliff with all the other lemmings and then dying and doing nothing for the Lord. So anyway, remember Noah. Noah had to take a stand. He got a lot of ridicule. And then there's Nehemiah. Nehemiah built the wall, and there were men who were lying about him, threatening him, that were part of the established government. And they're like, oh, he's going to come against the king. He's trying to become king himself, and all these things that were lies. And did he stop building the wall? No, he didn't listen to them. He defied them. He did opposite of what they wanted him to do. And then there's Elijah. Elijah had a showdown against his government of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, having the prophets of Baal and Ashtoreth all come together to Mount Carmel, which I've been there. It's over in Israel, and you can see the Mediterranean Sea. It's way up on high. It's really windy, and he had the showdown there, and fire came down. I think that's the eagle again. It's further away. Isn't that interesting? I never hear it until we do a Facebook Live. So crazy. Wonder if he'll come closer, or she. Don't know if it's a he or a she. Huh. Anyways, so he had the showdown, and the fire came down. He won, killed all of the prophets of Baal and Ashtoreth. And then Jezebel, what did she do the next day? She threatened him, sent a messenger to him and said, you know what, I'll do tomorrow what you did today to my prophets. And so what did Elijah do? He ran. He was scared, got into fear, took off, went to a cave, and then asked God to kill him. And ultimately God didn't. He told him to be a man, be strong, and knock it off. So a lot of us need to have God kind of tell us too, knock it off, quit getting into fear, quit being worried about anything. In fact, the story I'm talking about eventually will be about Daniel. You know, and I refer to this at the end saying, well, if Daniel can be in the lion's den and God can shut all the mouths of the lions from killing him, don't you think he can protect you from a virus? Yes, of course he can. But you have to know your authority. You have to know that you know your authority in Christ. You have to trust in the Lord. You can't get into fear and worry that you might get something, because if you do, then the enemy's already got you and he can give it to you. So you have to stay out of fear. You know, I've traveled throughout the country, some of the worst places, California, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, and I didn't get into worry or fear because I know my authority in Christ. But it took me, I don't know, a year to learn all that back in 2009, but the Lord is preparing me for what I'm doing today. So Proverbs 29:25 says, "The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe." Again, you got to trust. You got to know that you know that you know. You can't just say that, okay, I believe it. I'm going to be healed of everything, and then you get into fear and worry. Because when you do that, you're on the enemy's territory. He's got you already. And now he can give it to you. He can give whatever you fear. So don't fear. Where's your faith at? If your faith is completely in the Lord, when you get a symptom, you won't be worried about it. You'll speak against it and say, thank you, Lord. I'm healed. I am healthy in Jesus' name. And then the Lord can do the healing for you. Okay, so recently several bold pastors around America have been taking stands against their state governors who have been trying to force them to stop having church services, as they blame, the governors blame the pandemic using new, very suspicious, growing numbers of people supposedly testing positive for the virus. Many people who have gone to get tested, and again, I've heard some people personally that had this happen to them, where they got in line because their employers were making them go get in line to get tested, and then the lines were too long. They got tired of waiting for, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours, so they left. And then like the next day they get a phone call saying, hey, guess what? Your test came up positive. You've got it. And they're like, what? I didn't get tested. You're lying. And that's what's happening. That's why these numbers, you can't believe in them. So, sadly. In fact, in San Antonio, I think it was, 3,450 that they ended up telling people that they had it when they didn't. That's a lot of lies. So, all right. And then if you do get it, there's like a 99% recovery rate. So, many national stores, like Walmart, are now trying to force all people to wear masks to be able to shop, even though it has been proven masks do not stop the CV-19 virus and can cause people to have dizziness, headaches, and sickness in their lungs from not having proper oxygen levels to breathe in. And there's a guy from Washington named Troy who had been a friend of mine on Facebook for a while, and he had did a test where he proves when you're breathing in those masks how the carbon dioxide level goes up tremendously from like 630 to like 2,000 within like, I don't know, 5 breaths or something. It was incredible. And then he ended up showing how he was able to go into Costco and talk to the manager and saying that he was not able to wear the mask. And he actually had a thing printed up that he could show him saying that he was, it would do detrimental damage if he were to breathe, into the mask. And so the manager said that's all he needed. And so he let him shop without the mask. So if you want to breathe healthily without having that, you can print up a thing and then show that to the manager and let him know that, listen, I'm not going to do this. And that's all they need. He didn't want to enforce it at the Costco out in Washington. So, and most people really don't want to make their customers do it. They would rather it be a choice, truth be told. So, all right, the next thing they have talked about doing is forcing people back in their homes again, closing down businesses once more. There also has been talk of trying to get people to take a dangerous vaccine next that could cause people to get even sicker in the future or worse. Not to mention how this is laying the groundwork for people being forced to take the mark of the beast, which talked about in Revelation 13, not being able to buy or sell. So I'm going to read Revelation 13, 15 through 17. It says, "He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." So this is all conditioning, prepping us for that time. And I do believe that we are in the early stages of the last days. And I believe it happened once the virus in March hit, because the enemy knows. The enemy, that people that are doing evil things want to affect the United States and the economy so that Trump does not get reelected, because he is already making arrests of people. He is already doling out justice that needs to be done by arresting those who are evil, who have been in control for a long time. And the people that have been in charge of this world, the Freemasons, Illuminati, are no longer able to buy him out, so they can't control him. So now he's doing what is actually right. And I know that when he first came in, I wasn't a fan of him based upon what I knew about his reputation. But then after seeing what his actions have been, after interviewing his personal photographer, Gene Ho, and how Gene used to be a liberal, used to be a Clinton fan, and he actually observed behind closed doors who Trump was. And he said he's a man of integrity. He is not who the press is trying to portray him to be. And so he is a fan, a supporter of President Trump, and as well as his wife. And so yay, that helps to get the truth out there. Because again, if you watch CNN, liberal media all day long, you will be believing he's evil. You'll be believing that Joe Biden is good, even though Joe Biden can't even say a sentence that makes sense anymore. It's just getting really sad and ridiculous for how downhill he's going. So, with his cognitive skills and speaking ability and making common sense. So, all right. So, have you ever thought about Daniel, who made the decision to not submit to the law of the land in his time? Several leaders of his time were jealous of Daniel, so they plotted against him to have King Darius sign into law an edict that would not allow him to worship God. He knew if he defied the king's law and did not obey, that he would be killed. Yet he chose to honor God and not the government, and then God honored him. So how many of us, if God tells you to do something and the government's telling you to do something else, are going to end up doing what the government says versus God? Most people, I would think, would end up doing that. Why? Because it's really the small remnant, small percentage of those who are churchgoers that would actually do what God's telling them to do, including pastors. Most pastors are going along with this instead of saying, you know what, nope, this is wrong. I'm going to have a lawsuit against the governor to try to continue to meet. Those that are doing that, kudos goes out to them, because that is a small remnant, a small percentage of pastors. Most pastors are just getting in line and telling all their congregants to do what the government's telling them to do. And it's hard to stand up, but that shows you, where are our pastors at out there? It's not easy to stand up, because you are a public target at that point, but you need to speak the truth and do it. All right, so let's read the true story of Daniel's governmental defiance in text and see what happened to him for defying the local government's edict and honoring God. So this is in Daniel chapter 6, the plot against Daniel. It pleased Darius, who was king, to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one, that the satraps might give account to them, so that the king would suffer no loss. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and satraps, because an excellent spirit was in him. That means he had a pure, godly spirit, and he was more afraid of God than he was of man. And there's very few people that have that excellent spirit, where they're willing to do the opposite of what the government or their leaders are telling them to do. All right, so it says, and the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. So people, others, the other two governors, were jealous of him. Do we have people today that are jealous of people who are doing what God tells them to do? Yes. So the governors and satraps sought to find some charge against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no charge or fault, because he was faithful, nor was there any error or fault found in him. Then these men said, we shall not find any charge against this Daniel, unless we find it against him concerning the law of his God. So, what do they think? They're planning now, they're devising some evil to come against him. So these governors and satraps thronged before the king and said thus to him, King Darius, live forever. So they're trying to butter him up, kiss up to him. All the governors of the kingdom, the administrators and satraps, the counselors and advisors have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree, that whoever petitions any god or man for 30 days, except for you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. Therefore, King Darius signed the written decree. So, they suckered him into it. He shouldn't have done it. He should have said, oh my gosh, what about Daniel? Because he respected Daniel. He knew Daniel was a good guy. All right, then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Wait, let me go back. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home. This is verse 10, chapter 6 of Daniel. And in his upper room, with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day, and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. And they went before the king and spoke concerning the king's decree. Have you not signed a decree that every man who petitions any god or man within 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. So he couldn't change it. And the evil people, people that had demons, which we still have evil people today that have demons, they come up with evil plans against good people. So they answered and said before the king, that Daniel, who is one of the captives from Judah, does not show due regard for you, O king, or for the decree that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. And the king, when he heard these words, was greatly displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. So he wanted to stop it. And he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men approached the king and said to the king, know, O king, that it is the law of the Medes and Persians, that no decree or statute which the king establishes may be changed. And right then and there he should have said, you know what, forget you. You guys are evil, trying to hurt Daniel, and Daniel's a good man. So the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. But the king spoke, saying to Daniel, your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. Verse 17. Then a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring, and with the signets of his lords, that the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. Next, verse 18. Now the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting, and no musicians were brought before him. Also his sleep went from him. So he stayed up all night. There's the, I think those are birds, but they sound like monkeys. And I heard them earlier. I don't think they're the squirrels, but there was a squirrel that was making noise before. It sounded like a monkey, so who knows? I can't see. There's a bunch of leaves there. All right, so anyway, the king fasted all night, and he didn't sleep. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried out with a lamenting voice to Daniel. The king spoke, saying to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? So again, he was in worry, he was in fear that Daniel could have been eaten and killed, like most of the men would have been with a bunch of den of lions. But he held out hope that God somehow protected him. Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. And also, O king, I have done no wrong before you. So, when you take a stand for the Lord and you do something because the Lord told you to, or because it's godly, and it's the right thing to do, and it's right in the Lord's eyes, he will protect you supernaturally. He will do things that others can't stop. You know, he can send angels to do protecting you from people who are trying to kill you. Whatever that needs to be done. Again, you need to make sure that you're in right standing with the Lord for all this to take place. Daniel was definitely in right standing with the Lord. Now the king was exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the dead. I woke up at 1:11 this morning as I continue to have the Lord speak to me in the middle of the night. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no injury whatsoever was found on him, because he believed in his God, and God protected him. And the king gave the command, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. And the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces before they ever came to the bottom of the den. So, can you imagine? Can you imagine if that was taking place today, where if someone is up to no good and they're evil, let's say that there are people out there who are doing pedophilia, having sex with kids, that they are torturing kids, that they're drinking their blood, adrenochrome, whatever other evil things that they do, and they're getting away with it. But then all of a sudden there's a person in charge now, say a president of a country, that stands up for godliness and purity, and he actually takes action on evil people. Then what are the evil people going to do? They're going to try to come against that person, that leader, that president of the country, more than anyone, because they know it's life or death. They know that their sins are being found out. They know that they've done some really bad things to kids. So therefore, they're going to do everything they can to try to stop that person, especially from staying in power and being reelected. So then King Darius wrote, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men must tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God. Talking about he being God, capital H-E, and steadfast lover, or steadfast forever. His kingdom is the one which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall endure to the end. He delivers and rescues, and he works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. Who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions? So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus, the Persian. I know a lot of people have said that President Trump is like King Cyrus, that he is doing what is right in God's eyes, and he may not be the most, reserved individual. Sometimes he can be boisterous. Sometimes he can be like a bull in the china shop, but still, if he's doing what God wants him to do, then that is what we should honor. In fact, there's a guy named Keenan Bridges that did a interview with Sid Roth last week. Keenan's a black individual, and he ended up saying the Lord told him that those who honor President Trump will be honored themselves. So we are to honor him. And how many people don't even come close to honoring President Trump? So many that don't. Why? Because the enemies of him have done such a good job of trying to get out lies and portrayals of him to be evil, to get people to believe that and buy into that. So it's important to look at the actual actions of a person, which I ended up posting over the weekend. I think it was on Sunday, of all the good things that have to do with the family and Christian values, and I think that was the eagle. The eagle's coming back, yay! So anyway, you can read that on my Facebook as well as on Restorative Freedom. So Daniel obeyed God, trusting him in faith, and God did a miracle by protecting him from the deadly lions by closing their mouths, and then vindicated him by killing his enemies and their families. Then Daniel prospered and received favor from not only King Darius, but also King Cyrus. So there are many pastors who are now, unfortunately, been bowing down in fear around the world of submitting to their ungodly governmental leaders and local officials, and because of what might be done to them if they chose to stand up and to have church services. So instead of standing up with God and having church and seeing God bless them in ways they could not imagine for honoring the Lord, they are instead shutting down or going online due to the government trying to force them to submit. Now many of their members are not attending church anywhere or watching some of the services online alone instead of how God intended with other people. So that's where we are at. Are we going to do the hard thing and stand up for Jesus and say we will have services, even though the government's saying, nope, don't want you to have them? Why? Because there's a principle. And when we end up bowing down to the enemy on a principle that sounds good in this case, sounds plausible, what happens in the future when they want you to bow down and say take a vaccine, or they want you to bow down and take the mark of the beast? Then most people will end up doing it, and that's what they're counting on. So so instead of standing up for God and Jesus and having church and seeing God bless them in ways they could not imagine for honoring the Lord, they are shutting down or going online due to the government trying to force them to submit. Now, many other members are not attending church anywhere or watching some of the services online alone instead of how God intended with other people. Can you imagine Jesus and the disciples wearing masks and stopping all of their meetings? No, I can't imagine that. I know it's not easy, but people need to discern in the spirit what is really going on and what God wants us to do, and not bow down in fear to those in charge who do not have our best interests at heart. God will bless and honor those who are his remnant, who choose to obey him when the government tries to stop God's people from doing what the Lord wants. The Lord told me to continue traveling and doing ministry near the end of March instead of shutting down like everyone else was doing. Again, at the time I was in Phoenix, and I remember that. A lot of people were locally saying, well, you should just hang out here in Phoenix, stay here. And I'm like, well, I'm going to let the Lord tell me what to do. And, thank you for your advice, but let me see what the Lord's telling me. And the Lord said, if I were you, I would go on to Las Vegas, and then on to California, and then continue going up to Portland and then Seattle, because we've already set these appointments in place back in February. Like within a week, 10 days or something, I had 23 different venues. And I'm like, okay, Lord, if that's what you want me to do, then I'll do it. Even though I might get some opposition, I might get some people on Facebook that might get mad, think that I'm being bad and so forth, but that's okay. I can take it. I will do what you tell me to do. So what is it that you want me to do? For sure. And he said, again, I want you to keep on going, keep on doing ministry. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I said, I'm sure you probably don't want me to put it on Facebook though, right? He said, no, put it on Facebook so people can see. You know, when my hand's upon a person that is being obedient and doing what God says, then their enemies can't touch them. They can't stop them. I'm like, oh, all right. And then he kind of showed me again about Daniel. I mean, he did show me about Daniel. He told me about Daniel. He said Daniel went against what the government said to do. Did he not? And I'm like, yeah, he did. And he said Daniel faced dying. But did he die? I'm like, no, he didn't. He said the same thing's going to happen with you. You're doing what I'm calling you to do, and that supersedes what the government is trying to force people to do. And at the time, this is the first go round, you know, it it wasn't easy, because I'm like, okay, Lord, I go, I just sure hope that you protect those who are coming to these meetings. And the Lord said, I will protect them. Not one of them will get COVID. I'm like, okay. So then I started doing it. Went to Vegas first, and it was amazing because it was so clean, so pure. People that were out on the strip were all wearing clothes appropriately. They were rollerblading, they were biking, families were there. It was clean. Everybody was clothed appropriately. And we went into a home and did it with, I think, 10 people. Then I went to Anaheim, California, and they had a church, and we had about 30 people that came there. And that was taking a risk, because they were supposed to only have like 10 at the time. But there were so many people that had gotten their soul wounds healed and gotten delivered and got healed. There's a whole bunch that did. And I could feel the presence of the Lord so much stronger than ever before during worship. And the Lord was kind of showing me. He said, because, Nelson, I'm honoring your faith for going forward and doing this. Because most people shut down. They didn't do their ministries. And so I'm like, well, I'll keep doing what you tell me to do, Lord. And so I kept obeying God. And there are some people along the road, you know, people along the way that would say negative things to me. But I had to put it out of my mind and continue to do what God said, because ultimately there were great fruit coming out of that. There were a whole lot of people getting delivered. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And they wanted to. You know, they wanted to. They didn't want to not. And they're like, well, I just want to make sure that God's in this. And I'm like, well, he is. I go, I wouldn't be doing anything that God didn't tell me to do or want me to do. If he told me not to do it, I wouldn't do it. And I know I've done a lot of things that the Lord said to do that were really hard, that were not your normal things that people would want to do. So anyways, I continued on. I went from California on up to, in fact, it was weird because in California, several places, I was the only person in the whole hotel. You know, they would have like, I don't know, 4 stories. No, one had 10 stories in San Diego. I was the only person there. And I was like, my gosh, for the whole week? Sorry, there was an ant that was in my shoe. So for the whole week, I'm the only one there. And I'm like, well, this is kind of nice. And I get to know the people at the front desk by first name. They get to know me. And then I went on up to Central California, Northern California, went to Sacramento, which is the capital. I did Facebook Live there from the Capitol, State Capitol building. The guy out front, the policeman there, talked to him. He didn't have a mask on, and he's like, yeah, you can do Facebook Live. Don't have any problems. I'm like, okay, great. And then I went on up to Bernie, California, which is east of Redding, and did outdoor session there. We had, I don't know, 25 people, probably, something like that. And as far as I know, no one caught the virus there. And then I went on up to Portland, Oregon. Then I went on up to Seattle, did a conference there. Mother's Day weekend, we had probably a good 30 people each night, and nobody caught anything. And then I went on to, where's it, Montana, Billings, Montana, did a Friday night and a Saturday there. Then I went on to then I went on to Colorado, and then went on to Gillette, Wyoming, and then back to Colorado Springs. And the Lord kept blessing it. And then he eventually had me go up to Minneapolis. And I'm thinking, you know what? That's where I should go, Minneapolis. They had an uprising there. And so we went there, and the Lord said, I want you to now do it in the hotel that you're staying at, the Sheraton, which is owned by Marriott. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that would be cool. So we did. And in 1 week's notice, we had people coming in from 7 different states, including Texas, including Florida, including South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota. and it was awesome. It was just awesome. They loved the worship music. They had so many people that commented afterwards saying they'd gotten healed, delivered, all this stuff. This is great. This is what the Lord wanted, you know. And then hanging out in Indiana for a little while, but then the Lord said, I want you to go back to a different hotel now, the Marriott Minneapolis West, and that is August the 1st. And now we're getting more people coming in that are hungry. They want to get delivered. They want to get set free. They want to have freedom. And so we're doing that. In fact, one lady had messaged me on the Eventbrite and said, hey, are you going to make people wear masks? And I'm like, no. I said, if they want to, they can. I said, the last time we had one, July 11th, nobody wore one. You know, they were able to worship. It was freedom. They felt joy. And so I said, it's up to you guys. You know, I'm not going to make you. You know, Jesus didn't make people. So anyways, we are going back August the 1st now to the Marriott, Minneapolis Marriott West. We're going August 8th to Iowa, West Des Moines, Iowa, to the Marriott on the west side, and then to Omaha, Nebraska, August the 15th. And then I'm looking to go down to South Carolina, Hilton Head, South Carolina in September. Also looking at going to Tallahassee, Florida. And then September 25th, 26th, going to be at the River House in Jacksonville, Florida. And then head on over from there to Texas in October. And just continue on doing what the Lord has called me to do. So oftentimes the Lord, most times, the Lord's way is not the way of the world. So just understand that, because the Lord, you know, and the enemy of the world are completely going to be wanting to do the opposite thing. So it is what it is. So yes, in fact, I've never done ministry in Nebraska before, so this will be a first. And the only time I did ministry in Iowa was in northeastern Iowa. So this is the first time I've been to Des Moines to do ministry. So looking forward to that. Anyway, we need more Daniels to rise up on every level in the world. Every level. So I'm not just calling out the pastors, but I'm calling out you guys. You know, the remnant, there's going to be a lot of pastors, unfortunately, that are not a part of the remnant, which is sad. But those who truly, the remnant of those that are pursuing getting their soul wounds healed, getting delivered, becoming the true bride of Christ, having the fruit of the Spirit evident in their lives, not pursuing sexual perversity and behaving in ways that are not congruent with Christ. Because there's a lot of people in the church today that's what their life is like during every hour after they leave the church building, because they put on a show and they act like they're godly and stuff, but they're not. God looks at the heart, he looks at the mind, and that's what the purpose of Restorative Freedom's ministry is all about, is getting people truly freed from the oppression of the enemy so that they can actually operate in the fullness of Christ. And then that's when you see the revivals that people want to see breaking out. Is you can never have revival until you have repentance for sin and humbling of the pride and forgiveness. Those are the three big things we need to have. So anyway, we need more Daniels to rise up at every level in the world, even though it definitely is not easy. But would you rather be persecuted and hated on by people, by men, by women, here on earth, instead of meeting God on Judgment Day and having him tell you that you missed the mark because you bowed down to man instead of obeying him and living for him? The enemy does not want you to do anything for Christ, and he wants you to submit to man and stay at home. If God can protect Daniel from the mouths of lions, I'm pretty sure he's going to protect you from a virus for honoring him. So we can do this. Do God's will and not man's. So important. Again, it's interesting because I've not even thought twice about this. You think about when you hear the voice of the enemy, and what's he going to do? He's going to cause you to have fear, have worry, do things you shouldn't be doing. That's why it's so important to take every thought captive that's coming from the enemy. That's why Paul talked about that. We need to take the thoughts captive. If you don't, then the enemy takes us captive, and you don't have peace. So if you listen to even one sentence a day from the enemy, you're not going to have peace, because he's going to try to get you to think that over and over and over again. and I've preached this all the time, is if you know a person's sending you a message and they have the enemy within them, and you listen to the message, you read the message just even one time, then the enemy uses that to cause and plant fear and doubt, and then wants you to remember it and bring it back to your mind as many times as he can throughout the day, throughout the week. That's why it's so critical and important that you don't listen to people that are from the enemy. And if you know that you know that you know that they are not godly, that they don't have fruit that's godly, and that every time they speak to you, they cause you to come down to their level or get into fear, then don't listen. Block them. Block them. Don't listen to them. Don't read what they write. You know, I'll say this, when people try to come against me, as soon as I can pick up and discern that, okay, they've got anger, bitterness, evil, whatever in the message, I will delete it. I will not listen to it. I will not read it. Therefore, nothing that they say to me will get through. And we need to understand that that is so critical. You know, why would Jesus waste time listening to the Pharisees and the scribes? All they did is get him into striving. You know, and he didn't want to get into strife because the enemy wants to do that. He wants to pull you in, waste your time. So most of the time, whenever they were around, he would take off, go to the mountains and say, I'm out of here. I'm not going to waste my time on people that have demons who don't want to get delivered. So those that want to get delivered, you know, then great. He'll spend time with them. He'll help them. He'll teach them. That's, you know, what they want. But those that don't want to, you know, I've seen it throughout the last, since 2015, 5 years. Although it seemed like 50 years. But I've seen people who want to be time wasters and come in and act like, oh, please, please help me. Please, please, please. And they don't really mean it. All they're there is to try to either seduce or to pull you into their pity parties, or they want to come against if you don't do what they say. And then they'll spread lies and rumors about you to try to come against. So have nothing to do with them. So again, it's better to do right in the Lord's eyes and face persecution by men than to do what man is trying to do, trying to force you to do. In fact, I was reading, I don't think I have this on here, but there's a federal judge that was actually put into place by President Obama, that her husband was a former criminal defense attorney. They had a 20-year-old son, and she had recently taken over this case from Epstein. And she was visited by a FedEx driver, supposedly a supposed FedEx person. They weren't. And that person rang the doorbell, and then the husband came to answer it and was shot several times. And then the son was shot and killed. And then the judge was actually down in the basement, so she didn't get shot. Why? Because the enemy doesn't play fair. The enemy is evil. The enemy wants to come and steal, kill, and destroy, because she was going to, and she is, taking over this case. So you can imagine when you have the enemy at that level, you know, it is life and death. That is why the enemy is so bent on trying to fix, cause people to stay home, for one, so that they can lie about mailing in votes. In fact, they did that, I believe, in California. They found already fraud where people were mailing stuff in and it wasn't correct. And they're trying to persuade and influence in a negative way. So they've already proven, you know, that they are out there to steal, kill, and destroy. And they will go at no lengths to try to stop. Why? Because it's life or death for them. You know, when people are doing evil and they don't want other people to find out about it, they will oftentimes do some of the most wicked, evil things to godly people. It is the truth. And in fact, when I prepared for this, I was thinking, okay, Lord, I go, if I'm going to speak about this, I might get some negative feedback from this. He said, that's okay. He goes, I put you there. I anointed you to do this. And I'm like, man, it's not fun. I go, it'd be more fun to talk about, you know, let's prophesy over everybody. Great words, you know, make them feel good. He said, yeah, I got too many prophets out there that's what they're doing. He goes, they're not willing to speak the truth. They're not willing to actually teach people about how to get delivered. And some of them are kissing up to witches, and they're just looking the other way and allowing, you know, things to happen where they should be a mighty man of God or woman of valor and actually confronting and speaking the truth. And so it's not easy sometimes doing what God wants us to do, but it's always the right thing to do. no matter what. So there you go. Yes, eagles. I did hear a little bit of eagle screeching. It was further away this time, but God wants us to have eagle's vision, which they can see so far away. And that allows you to see things in the spirit realm. There's so many people that can't see things in the spirit realm, and they're going and listening to the press, the liberal press, and getting their news from them, and then they're all skewed and they're all screwed up because they're believing that to be true. Well, there's a false narrative that the enemy tries to get out there. And if you buy into that false narrative, you're believing lies, and it's going to mess you up, and it's going to mess up your family. You know, there's individuals that will believe things that, you know, CNN says, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? You can't listen to them because they're lying. That's how they can control people. As a matter of fact, I remember a lady that she used to watch a lot of the liberal news, and she thought that Trump was bad, and then Trump got elected, and then she had a brother who kept showing her the good things that Trump was doing. Then finally she started realizing, oh my gosh, the liberal media has been lying to us all of our lives. And we're like, yeah. So then she finally started seeing the good in what Trump was doing. She's like, oh my gosh, we got to support him. We got to pray for him. He's actually doing good. So it was amazing, the change in this woman within like a year. And so, yeah, Trump's not a perfect man, but he sure has changed to doing what God wants him to do. And that was what was prophesied by Clement, that he would not be a praying president when he came into office, but that he would leave office as a praying president. So continue to pray for him, and as well as his press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. You know, I would not want her job to have to speak. In fact, there was a meme that I sent that was funny. I don't think I have it. I don't think it's on here on my iPad. If it is, I'll show it to you. Probably don't. Nope, I don't see it. Anyway, it was a meme about Kayleigh McEnany. She gave her testimony on CBN 700 Club, where she had like breast cancer, or was going to have it, and so they ended up having to have the mastectomy. And she said that the Lord has put her there in that place for such a time as this, to speak the truth, to be able to handle and to stand up for Trump and what he's trying to do. And you can imagine, you know, I can't imagine, because I teach people not to get into conversations and debates with people who unfortunately are being influenced demonically, because all it's going to do is waste your time. So that's all that she has to do, like every morning, is to have these meet the press and then have her get depressed from all the press. And anyway, it's a funny meme that says, okay, next, something like next dumb or stupid, ridiculous question. Because that's what happens. It's or irrelevant question, something like that. And that's what happens, is they end up keep asking question after question after question, with the whole idea of trying to paint a person in a wrong light, the president in a wrong light. So anyway, it's going to be interesting the next couple of months. In fact, I believe it was the president was saying that this is going to be a hot August, and that means it's going to be not just a hot physically, temperature-wise, but there's going to be a lot of things happen in the month of August. So there you go. Alrighty, well, I'm going to let you guys go. See ya. Love ya. Bye-bye.